Tess, you're an experienced travel nurse. What is classed as high altitude?
High altitude is anything above 2,400 metres. So, for example, Quito in Ecuador, Cusco in Peru, Bogota in Colombia are all classed as high altitude. Very high altitude is above 3,500 metres. So places like Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, La Paz in Bolivia. Extreme altitude is above 5,500 metres. So that's like sort of base camp of Everest above. Summit of Everest is 8,800 metres.
So what is altitude sickness?
Altitude sickness is where there's less oxygen in the atmosphere, so it makes it harder to breathe. It makes daily activities more strenuous.
And who is at risk of altitude sickness?
Anybody regardless of your gender, of your age, of your level of fitness. There are certain people who are more vulnerable, so people who have heart problems or severe asthma, they should get checked out before they attempt anything at altitude.
How do you prevent altitude sickness?
The most important thing you need to do is to acclimatise. So when you arrive in an area of high altitude, what you need to do is just stay in that area for a couple of days and not do very much. Don't do anything strenuous. Get plenty of rest. You need to, if you're going above 3,500 metres, you should only ascend 300 metres in a day. You need to pace yourself, so don't run up it. Make sure that you drink plenty, and take lots of sugary snacks as well. And then just make sure that you get plenty of stops as well, get plenty of rest while you're ascending. Some doctors will prescribe something called Diamox, which can help with the symptoms, but it doesn't mean to say that you've still got to take the precautions of acclimatising and ascending slowly. Yeah.
So what are the signs and symptoms of altitude sickness?
Mild altitude sickness is things like headaches, dizziness. Extreme altitude sickness would be lack of coordination, like a bubbling sound in your chest. If you get any of those symptoms, you need an immediate accompanied descent because that's a medical emergency. Yeah.
Thanks, Tess. That sounds really interesting. Have you got any personal experiences yourself of this?
Yeah, about 6 years ago, I went to Peru with a friend of mine who's like a competitive athlete. He's a very fit bloke. He flew into Cusco. We didn't acclimatise, we were doing lots of things. We set off on our trek, and we were supposed to walk the first part of it, but we were driven up. So we were driven for about an hour, which would probably be a day's walk, really. So we started off at quite high altitude, and we were it was quite a steady pace that we were having. My friend was struggling, and that night it got worse and worse. The next morning, he literally he couldn't stand up. So we then had to go back down. Thankfully, we had a donkey with us, because otherwise it would have even had to be carried back down with us. So we had to go back down the mountain, and when we eventually got to a hospital, his oxygen saturation levels were 32%, which is really dangerous. He spent a week in hospital on oxygen, various medication. He didn't have any insurance. We had to pay over $2,000 out of our own pocket.
So salutary lesson on travel insurance as well.
Yes, definitely.
To get good travel insurance.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.